Well, I think Coach Long probably got all softened up for me, so we're ready for some basketball. It's exciting. Seems like forever since I've been sitting in here talking about an Aztec game, but we have our exhibition game against Ucsd tomorrow night. We'll have at least 3 new Aztec starters on the floor, which is always exciting, for a coach and for the fan base. We'll throw KJ Fagan out there. We'll throw Malachi Flynn, Yanni Wetzel, all guys that are new to an Aztec uniform playing their first game in Viejas. And the strange thing is 2 of them are seniors and 1 of them's a junior. But their first time on the Viejas floor and against a very good UCSD team. I take comfort in the fact we have good returners. Jordan Shackle, Matt Mitchell, Nathan Mensah, guys that have been on the floor for us, Adam Seiko. And as a coach, you always get nervous when you have a lot of freshmen out there. Like last year, I had 5 freshmen, 3 sophomores. This year, I only have 1 freshman on scholarship. And he's a magnificently good, talented player, but he looks like a freshman sometimes. So I'm excited to get him out there, Keshad Johnson, and let him play in front of the crowd and the lights and see how he responds to that first college experience. So it's exciting. It's going to be fun, and we're going to play a really good UCSD team that won 26 games last year, that returns basically 5 starters. Oshida missed last year with an injury, but was a starter, and they'll be favored to obviously make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, Division II, in their last year of Division II basketball. So great opponent and a great time to be an Aztec basketball fan.
Coaches hate the word rebuild, but the word reload, does that fit this thing?
Yeah, I think if I would have signed 3 or 4 more freshmen, Lee, on top of 5 freshmen, you might have been thinking rebuild. But when you sign 5th-year seniors, that's the beauty of it. You're basically saying we're reloading. And recruiting is always a challenge. It's the mix now of high school seniors, which we have 3 commitments for the following year, transfers, which we'll have 3 on the floor, obviously, to start the game tomorrow, and junior college guard who we've added, Trey Pulliam, who's a very good player. So that's the challenge in recruiting now, the mix, the transfers with freshmen and junior college players, and hopefully we put that formula together this year. We'll be challenging for a Mountain West title.
Coach, do you feel this is a team that can make the NCAA tournament? Looking 3 months out here?
That has to be our belief. That has to be the thought every time you step on the floor at San Diego State. That's why these kids came here. They came here because of the winning tradition, the fact that we've been in the NCAA tournament 7 of the last 10 years. And the one year we didn't go, we won the conference by 3 games and lost in the conference championship game to Fresno. And they went. And so you'd say, boy, that was a bad year. It was a darn good year. Won 28 games. But it's a high bar here. And it was set by Coach Fisher, obviously with me sitting alongside him. But I look forward to that every year. I know what the expectations are, and I have the same ones. So do our kids.
You guys last week raved about Keshad's athleticism and what he can do kind of above the rim. What have you seen from him from that standpoint? And I guess, how unique is he?
He's a talent like we've seen in the past year on the Mesa, reminiscent of Billy White, that type of athlete, and versatile player that he can play inside out. And the biggest challenge for all freshmen is at the defensive end. There's so much more responsibility. Offensively, I wish he'd try to do a little more. He's such an unselfish player that I think right now he's not sure when he's supposed to take his moments in attack. And when he does, he's magnificent. So I've got to get his confidence up in the fact where you're not going to make me upset if you take more shots and attack to the basket more. But he's a wonderful kid, and so he's just trying to please his coaches and not trying to exert himself yet. But I think when that time comes, when he gets that comfort level, he's going to be a real impact player for us.
Dutch, talking about tomorrow's exhibition game, what do you hope to get out of it? What's the goal of the exhibition game, and is winning the game a goal?
Obviously, winning is always a goal when you step on the floor. But I have to balance that with saying I don't want to win so bad that all of a sudden I'm not going to play Keshad at all because I'm trying to win a game. I have to get Keshad ready for Texas Southern on the 5th. So I may have to live through some freshman mistakes like I did with last year's group. I have to mix winning with getting guys minutes so when we play a regular season game that they're more ready for that moment. So obviously I want to win, but I have to play my players just like Eric does. Eric has a deep team, but he'll play a lot of guys, probably more so than he would in a regular season game. So both coaches will be experimenting. That's why it's an exhibition game. Trying to win, but at the same time experimenting with lineups and combinations so you're ready for the regular season.
Would it be a concern if they ended up scoring more points than you guys did?
Well, that would be a big concern. But, I mean, we've had exhibition games in the past where we've kind of rolled over teams, and that doesn't serve you well either, other than getting under the lights and let everyone score 15 or 20 points. This won't be that kind of game. This will be a very highly contested game because, they're experienced. They have starters back from a team that won a lot of games, and so they're ahead because of their experience. They'll execute their stuff really well. We'll try to take them out of some stuff, but they'll already know what their counters are. That's what an experienced team does. So I'm looking forward to the challenge of playing a really competitive exhibition game.
Another question about UCSD. Since they're going to be D1 next year, would they be scheduled as an exhibition game or not?
We've been talking to them, trying to find space in the schedule, and obviously we're still in limbo because the Mountain West has been talking about a 20-game conference schedule. So if that happens, it cuts 2 non-conference games out. So until we get through some resolution with that, our scheduling's a little bit slowed down on teams like UCSD. We'd love to play them, obviously. I think it'd be great for the city.
Could you talk about Matt Mitchell this summer and just really the dedication to losing some weight?
Yeah, Matt has been magnificent in his approach to his own body and to the team. Matt came in at, I think, 235 pounds as a freshman. He got heavy last year to the point where he was still a magnificently good player, but not as good as he could be. And now I think he's back down to 240 pounds, which is close to his freshman weight. And the thing is, he's been coming off, he had an arthroscopic surgery on his knee, meniscus. And so he had to miss 6 or 7 weeks of practice. So he's just getting himself back into game shape. The weight has stayed off, but he's got to get his game legs back underneath him. So I think over the next week or two, you'll see that happening.
Kawhi Leonard still has to practice when the Clippers have an off day, but it's probably going to be easier for him to come down to San Diego now that he's in LA instead of Toronto. Do you expect him to be contributing to the current players at all?
Kawhi's been invaluable to the program because of who he is. You can see that you can be the best player in the world from San Diego State University. And that's a credit to him. I mean, Kawhi is a magnificent athlete, a wonderful athlete, but he has a work ethic matches it. So there's a lot of great athletes, but very few with the work ethic he has. So his work ethic combined with his talent has made him maybe the best player in the world. And so just to have him be a part of San Diego State basketball is really important to all of us. Now, we don't see him that much. He's got a full-time job. It's called the NBA. And so he is working on his game up in L.A. I'm sure if he, has a break, extended break, which they don't happen very often in the NBA, he's got a house in Rancho Santa Fe. He'd probably come back for a day. But I think he'd be resting his legs at that point.
What do Fagan and Wetzel really bring to the table to make that sort of immediate impact?
Well, I'm counting on experience from those guys. They're fifth-year seniors. They played a lot of basketball. Now, they've not played a lot for San Diego State, and so I'm relying on other coaches' teachings over those years. And they've played for some really good coaches. Herb Sindek at Santa Clara is a really good coach. And then obviously Drew, who didn't make it at Vanderbilt, is a really good coach too. So they've had good coaching. So I'm taught them the way we do things here, combined with the way they've been taught over their careers, and I think the combination is going to be a good one for us.
Both Malachi and KJ kind of had lead guard duties in their last school. What's the dynamic now with those two in the backcourt in terms of who's initiating offense, that sort of thing?
It's interesting because I've kind of let them kind of work that out sometimes. On a missed shot, who's ever closest to the outlet can take it. I don't send one down the floor and the other one lingers. But they have to realize when one's waiting for the outlet, the other one's got to get down the floor. So that's kind of a work in progress. Set play-wise, that will vary based on who's defending them at that time. Maybe if they have a two-guard guarding Malachi, I'll move him to the point, make a two-guard guard the point, and vice versa with KJ, depending on what the defensive matchup is, where I think they're most dangerous, and move them around on the floor accordingly.
What impact do you expect Malachi to have this season?
Well, I know he's going to score a lot of points, but in our close scrimmage against Point Loma, he did a great job of moving the ball. He was really an initiator, and he's shown that in practice at times, but not like he did when the game lights came on. I thought he was just so much better in that situation. That's why I'm excited to see him out here playing in the exhibition game and then obviously our non-conference games, that I think he has a part of his game that he's been kind of keeping back. You know, he shoots it a lot in practice, which I like too, but his playmaking is way better in a game situation than I've seen in practice, and that was really encouraging to me. Because, you know, my offensive goal is always to share the ball, you know, score assisted baskets. And when this team moves the ball like that, I think we'll have a lot of that happening.
Brian, I got a question, a philosophical question about coaching players who have aspirations to go to the NBA. And I bring this up because Charlotte just let McDaniels go. They sent him to Greensboro in the G League, with everybody talking to players and everybody's in their ears, their old coaches, their family, their cousins, whatever. How challenging is it for you to actually have input to help a kid make the right decision so he doesn't wind up in Erie, Pennsylvania or in China without a job?
Yeah, it's always a challenge, Lee, because it's competitive out there, just like it is in college and high school for these kids. It's a competitive market, and so based on what other players they have in their professional franchise determines whether they're going to spend time up there or get sent to the G League and recalled. And so, you know, Jalen tested the water after his redshirt freshman year and came back because he wasn't ready. Last year, it was borderline, you know, is he ready or he not ready? And he ended up being drafted and signed a contract where he's getting some guaranteed money, even though it's not a long-term guaranteed deal. You know, he is getting paid good money as a first-year professional athlete. And I think the thing is now it's such a world game that the money these players are making overseas is incredible if they're good. Like this year we have Malcolm and Thomas and Jamal Franklin on the same team in China, and both of them making a really good living playing basketball. And we still have guys that have been overseas, like Winston Shepard's been overseas, and he wants to give the G League a try this year. And obviously the G League money's not what they're making overseas, but if you say maybe I'll get called up, maybe I'll get a 10-day call-up and have a chance to prove myself. And so choosing your route is always interesting. Do you want to go overseas and make the money? Do you want to roll the dice, maybe make less money but be available to an NBA team? So it's always a formula that, you know, mostly the player and the agents are working out at that time. My only input is to say, I think you're ready. If you come back in the summer, you can always get in the jam to work on your game. Anything we can do to assist you, you know, we would love to do, make calls for you. But at that point when they're choosing what route to go, once they leave, it's their agents and them kind of sitting together and plotting that course, which is different for every player.
Any more questions for Coach? Coach, I was hoping to get your reaction to the NCAA's top, or the governing board voting unanimously to allow student athletes to profit in 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. I think student athletes having the ability to profit on their likeness and image, and I think that's a great thing. I think we'll see how the NCAA enacts it. You know, we'll see what it actually looks like on paper when it happens. So I think we all knew we were heading that direction with California passing the bill and then Florida jumping on board. I think the NCAA knew that was going to happen eventually. I just didn't know what timeline they would have for it, and I think they've done as good a job as they can getting out in front of it right now, and now the devil's in the details, figuring out what's the best way to initiate it.
Does that have any effect on, like, players sitting out possibly, or in anticipation of maybe?
Well, it sounded like in the wording that it could happen immediately or whenever they can figure out how they want to enact it, and so who knows what that will mean for current players, you know, until the NCAA sits down. I know the state of California, I think it wasn't until 2023 they were going to enact it. And so obviously the NCAA may have sped up that timeline. So none of us will really know what it's going to be until they sit down, put it to paper, and put it out there as a policy.
I think the Coaches Association should have input into what the framework of this thing might be.
I think the Coaches Association will have some input. You know, we'll sit down as a body and tell them what we think it should look like, and obviously they'll take that input and shape it in the way they think it's best for college athletics. You know, I will say this, it's the likeness thing. All the years you guys have covered sports in San Diego, how many Chargers did you ever see on a commercial, or Padres, as current players, do a commercial for a corporation? I mean, maybe you count it on one hand. And so I don't know how big an impact it will or won't have in college. You know, obviously, it's going to something we're all going to look at. But if you looked at San Diego's history, you know, how many of those pro athletes ever had endorsement deals where you saw them on TV or you saw them making a living doing that? It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Which means that since there are no pro teams in Laramie, Wyoming, certain colleges might be able to benefit more, which could attract. And the other thing too is the stipend previously existed for the service academies who have a monthly stipend as well as the free tuition, room, board, and books. So as I said, there's a possibility too the businesses might support the local Air Force or Navy or Army cadet at the expense of Colorado State or Maryland or.
Yeah, well, I think obviously I would go there. I would say the bigger city you're in, the more opportunities you would have. And San Diego's a big city with a lot of opportunities, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in due time.